007 returns to video gaming with 007 First Light, made by IO Interactive. And I'm going to give my thoughts on the game. And to be honest, I'm just going to be pretty direct with everything. And I'm going to give the score first thing. So it's 7 out of 10. It is a good game, bordering very good, but there's just not enough gameplay in the game. It's a lot of the modern gaming type of thing for these big budget games now. There's a lot of the story. The story's okay, but not enough to justify all those cutscenes. Um, yeah, there's a decent amount of combat when you get further into the game, but overall, I think there could have been a bit more early on. Gunplay, utilizing gadgets. I think the gadgets were fun to use, but you couldn't use them enough. And some gadgets were just pointless to use because others were so good. Like if you wanted to play stealthily, you had to use the smoke prod. That was the best way to use it, or whatever the gadget's called. The smoke grenade type thing. It was amazing. The laser pen was really good as well. Obviously, you have your standard Q watch, which is basically just instinct mode from Hitman. The gameplay is fine. It's the stealth, the AI is pretty bad, to be honest, but overall it's still fun. The combat's is decent, not great, but fine. And the gunplay, the combat is quite good. Maybe the best of the three things, actually, the three aspects to the gameplay. And you've got the exploration, finding different routes and stuff, which is okay. You have a few differences to approach from Hitman, where you've got the bluff system. So if you get caught by someone in an area you shouldn't be in, you can pretend to be someone that's supposed to be there, but you need to have a certain amount of what in the Hitman equivalent instinct. I don't know what it is in Bond, to be honest. I can't remember. But yeah, no, it's decent. There's some good levels in there. There's some good character dynamics. I feel like everyone is really condescending to Bond and treats him just quite badly. They're very belittling. Yeah, okay, he's not very obedient, doesn't listen to orders as much as he could, but it's usually for a good reason that he doesn't. It's usually because he wants to save more lives or do something heroic. And even when he does a good thing, he doesn't really get any praise. So I noticed that was a bit bizarre, and he didn't really stand up for himself that much. However, I did like the portrayal of Bond from Patrick Gibson. I think it was a good take on a young Bond. At times, maybe he could have been a bit more arrogant, I think, as Bond, but there were a few incidences where he was. There was a few Bond girl moments. Well, one in particular was decent, you sort of thing you'd expect from the films. The car chases were probably the biggest letdown for me. I feel like the car chases were quite bad. They didn't feel that good to control with the car, and you couldn't really utilize gadgets in the car apart from, well, right at the end, really. You had that section with the car, but it wasn't really very good, in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen lots of different gadgets for the car. It's sort of like, I'm not expecting it necessarily to be, actually, yeah, I am expecting it to be as good as the Batmobile from, Batman Arkham Knight. People criticize that a lot because they sort of overused it in the game, but it was really nicely utilized, and you had all sorts of different things you could do with a Batmobile. So I would have felt like something like that, obviously not copying it completely, in Bond would have been really cool, to use the car much more. And you should have been able to have a bit more freedom, be able to drive around, explore around a little bit. I think that would have been cool, instead of sort of being forced into these linear sections. Overall, I did enjoy myself. I don't know if I've made that clear. It is still an enjoyable experience. The gameplay does mainly work pretty well. The story is fine. And the tax sim, the sort of extra stuff to do after you complete the game, or just if you want to do that stuff anyway. There is also the shooting range where you can practice, target shooting with a pistol, which is quite cool. But yeah, the tax sim is just basically challenges, parts of the game, combat sections, which you can try and do fast or try and do challenges for them. Basically to try and get as many points as you can in the leaderboard, competing against other people worldwide. The they haven't got any driving ones yet, but when they release the driving ones, I'll probably return to the game because I think that would be really cool if they, have lots of gadgets on the car and you've got to do different things with the car. Maybe a race section, just a standard race, and then a combat section with the vehicle. I don't know. There's a lot of scope for what they can do with that. I think that would be quite fun. I think the game will be much more enjoyable then, and possibly would bump it up to an 8 out of 10 if they get that really good. But currently, where I stand with the game, because I've had a lot of time to rethink everything, it's not really anywhere near as good as the modern Hitman titles. I know it's a different game, but they're just much more fun to play. There's more to do. I know they've had time to add things in, etc. But I think they're just better games. They're just, I think most people would say that. Especially if you're into stealth, but I just think they are better made games. More thought into them, more replay value, etc. How I'd rank this compared to the other games made by IO I've played. I've played every single main Hitman game, including Codename 47, the first one on PC. I'm not really a PC player, and the controls are pretty outdated, so I didn't really enjoy that one. All the other Hitman games are really good standard. I'd say I enjoy all the Hitman games more than this 007 game. And those are the only games I've played from IO. I know they've made a few others as well. I haven't played those ones. And that's not to say that this is a bad game by any means. I just really love the Hitman series. And I think they're another level of replay value and just generally better games. They know what they are. They're not really about the story very much. That's sort of a background thing. They're about the freedom of approach with the missions. And they're just really fun, basically, just great games. So I would recommend that to anyone that's a fan of stealth. But yeah, I suppose this game will probably be one of the better games in 2026 for a lot of people, just because it has got decent gameplay in there. And I think when they release more content, it'll be good. And the story, I think most people will find fine. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the rest of the year, in terms of where I feel with gaming, I'm a little bit burnt out from gaming at the moment. I've been returning to some old games, and they are more games than these sort of modern big budget titles. They're much less cutscenes. They're much more of the gameplay, side missions, all sorts of stuff, collectibles, just more classic games. And I have enjoyed going back to them, but because I've played them lots throughout, my life, I just feel like a bit of a break from gaming actually at the moment. Just a bit fed up of things. And yeah, I'll probably sort of get back into it a lot when GTA releases, just, mainly for the trying to get the YouTube videos up, because, it's going to be a lot to talk about. And it is, I have to be honest, GTA isn't one of my favorite series. I think they're well-made games, but I wasn't allowed to play them when I was much younger. And yeah, I think they're just, there's a lot to do in them, but they're not massively for me. Other games I've mentioned, Hitman, and if you've watched my channel with other stuff like a Dragon, those are my sort of games. I really like those games. I prefer them, but I will be doing GTA content. So yeah, later this year. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, I'll be up with more content, probably more shorts, and I'll think of a few more topics to talk about. Maybe have a bit of gameplay I've got saved over to show as well. But anyway, thanks. Bye.